So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Was in Justice League and Harem with Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy. So let's start the series. The landing shattered 3 roof tiles before Naruto's feet found purchase. He didn't have time to register the damage. Something sliced through the air where his head had been a second ago, a whip, black as oil, cracking against the brick wall behind him with enough force to leave a scar. His body moved on instinct. Years of training buried so deep they'd become breath. Left pivot kunai out. Except his fingers found empty holster. Right. No tools. No chakra network responding the way it should. Just a body that remembered being dangerous and a world that hadn't gotten the memo yet. You're bleeding on my exit route. The voice came from shadow, no, through shadow. A figure perched on the ledge of the building across from him, silhouetted against a sky that was somehow orange and black at the same time. Smog and neon fighting for dominance. Naruto touched his cheek. Wet. When had that happened? The whip hadn't touched him. I'm not here to fight, he said. The figure laughed. Low. Amused. Not the kind of laugh that meant anything good. You fell through a skylight, interrupted a very clean job, and set off 3 alarms I spent 40 minutes disabling. She leaned forward, and the city's sickly light caught the curve of a bodysuit, the glint of goggles, something moving in her hand. So either you're the worst backup I've ever seen, or you're an idiot. Naruto's jaw tightened. I don't even know where here is. Silence. It stretched between them, filled with the distant wail of sirens. Always sirens here, he noticed at first, the noise constant like the city was perpetually bleeding, and the heavy thrum of something beneath the streets. Machinery. Or maybe just Gotham breathing. You're not local, she said. Not a question. No. Definitely not a cop. I don't know what that means here. Another pause. The figure stood, and Naruto finally understood the silhouette. Woman. Taller than him. Suit that hugged every line of her body like a second skin. Cat ears on the goggles, which should have been ridiculous but somehow wasn't. She moved along the ledge like the drop didn't exist. Grace that looked effortless because she'd probably spent years making it look that way. Naruto, he said before he could stop himself. Old habit. Old village. You gave your name to people you wanted to trust you. She stopped. Didn't ask? No, he agreed. But you were thinking about leaving me here, and I need. He stopped. What did he need? Directions? A way back? A way to make sense of a city that smelled like iron and exhaust and something rotting underneath it all. I need to understand where I am. The woman tilted her head. He could feel her looking at him, really looking, and Naruto knew what she saw, a kid in worn clothes, no gear, bleeding from a cut he didn't remember getting, standing on a broken rooftop in a city that ate people like him for breakfast. I'm Selena, she said finally. And you're in Gotham. She said it like that explained everything. Maybe it did. The sirens were closer now. Selena, Catwoman, his brain corrected, because of course someone with cat ears in Gotham had a name like Catwoman, glanced toward the sound with the practiced irritation of someone who'd heard it 1,000 times before. We need to move, she said. You coming, or are you planning to explain to GCPD why you're trespassing on private property with no ID and a face that's not in any system? Naruto didn't move. Why would I go with you? She laughed again, and this time there was something almost warm in it. Almost. Because I'm the only person in the city who knows you exist, Blondie, and right now that makes me your best option. It wasn't trust. It wasn't even kindness. But it was honest, and Naruto had learned to recognize honesty in people who usually gave him the opposite. He moved. Selena didn't wait. She was off the ledge and across the gap to the next building before he'd taken 2 steps, and Naruto had to push hard to keep up. No chakra meant no walls, no shortcuts, just legs and lungs and a body that had done this 1,000 times in 1,000 different places. He matched her pace, then pushed ahead, catching the edge of a ventilation shaft and swinging himself onto a higher platform before she could take the lead. She stopped. Watching him. Naruto met her gaze and said nothing. You're not normal, she said. Neither are you. A pause. Then a smile. Small, sharp, but real. No, she agreed. I'm not. They moved again, and this time it felt less like flight and more like dance. Selena testing him, pushing harder, faster, choosing routes that required split-second decisions and absolute trust in your own body. Naruto answered each challenge without thinking, his limbs remembering what his mind couldn't quite grasp, that he was lighter here, faster, that the air itself seemed to bend around him even without chakra to command it. They ended on a rooftop overlooking a river. The water was dark, sluggish, carrying nothing good in its depths. Selina sat on the edge like it was a park bench, legs dangling over nothing. "You fell from somewhere," she said. "Not just the skylight. Somewhere else." Naruto stayed standing. "Yeah. And you're not going to tell me where? Would you believe me if I did?" She considered this. "Probably not." "Then what's the point?" Selina pulled her goggles off, and Naruto got his first real look at her face. Sharp features. Dark hair. Eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. She looked at him like he was a puzzle she hadn't decided to solve yet. "The point," she said slowly, "is that you're either a threat or a liability, and I need to figure out which before you get me killed." "I'm not a threat. You landed on my job, kept up with me across 4 blocks of rooftops, and you're standing there like this is Tuesday." She tilted her head. "Everyone's a threat in Gotham, kid. The only question is who they're a threat to." Naruto sat down. Not close to her, but not far either. Close enough to talk. Far enough to move if he needed to. "I'm looking for something," he said. "A way back. A way to understand what happened." He paused, feeling the absence in his chest where chakra should have been, a phantom limb he couldn't stop reaching for. "I don't know how long that'll take." Selina watched him for a long moment. The sirens had faded, replaced by the distant hum of traffic and the occasional shout from the streets below. Gotham's heartbeat, ugly and relentless. "You need a place to stay," she said. It wasn't a question. "I need to not die before I figure things out." "That's the same thing here." She reached into her suit. Naruto's hand twitched toward a weapon that wasn't there before he stopped himself, and pulled out a card. Plain white, no name, just an address. "Show this to the doorman. Tell him Dante sent you." She stood, brushing dust from her suit. "Don't make me regret this." Naruto looked at the card. The address meant nothing to him. "Why are you helping me?" Selina was already moving toward the fire escape, her form dissolving back into the shadows that seemed to love her. She paused at the edge, half-turned, and for a moment her face was something other than sharp angles and careful distance. "Because you looked at this city like it hurt you," she said quietly. "And I remember what that felt like." Then she was gone. Naruto sat alone on the rooftop, the card warm in his palm, and tried to remember what it felt like to be somewhere he understood. The city didn't answer. It never did. The address was a building that shouldn't have existed. Not because it wasn't there, it was, all brick and iron and windows that reflected nothing, but because nothing in Gotham looked this cared for. The street outside was cracked pavement and boarded storefronts, but the lobby behind the glass door had polished floors and a man at the desk who moved like he'd been military once. Naruto showed the card. The man looked at it, looked at Naruto, looked at the card again. "Room 4B, he said. "Don't cause trouble." The elevator worked. That alone felt like a miracle. The hallway on the 4th floor was quiet, carpeted, lit with bulbs that weren't flickering. Naruto found 4B, tried the handle, found it unlocked. Inside, a couch, a table, a window that showed a brick wall. A bed in the corner that looked like it had been slept in recently by someone smaller than him. A plant on the windowsill that was somehow still alive despite the lack of sun. He stood in the middle of the room and felt the weight of everything he didn't know pressing down on his shoulders. No chakra. No village. No friends. Just a city that hurt to look at and a woman with cat eyes who'd given him a place to sleep without asking for anything in return. Naruto sat on the bed. The mattress sagged. The springs groaned. He lay back and stared at the ceiling and tried very hard not to think about home. The plant, inexplicably, seemed to lean toward him. He didn't notice. 3 days. That's how long it took for Gotham to try to kill him. Naruto had spent those days learning the city's shape, its rhythms, the places where people disappeared and the places where they gathered to pretend they weren't afraid. He'd learned that money here was paper, that food came from places called bodegas, that the police were not like the shinobi he knew and were definitely not to be trusted. He'd learned that Selina Kyle, Catwoman, was a name people said in certain tones. Respect. Fear. Something that might have been desire if the people saying it weren't so careful. He hadn't seen her since the rooftop. On the 3rd night, he was walking back to the building when 3 men stepped out of an alley and blocked his path. They were big. Armed. Confident in the way people got when they outnumbered someone. You're the kid who's been asking questions, the biggest one said. His voice was the kind of rough that came from cheap whiskey and cheaper living. People don't like questions here. Naruto stopped walking. I haven't asked anything. You showed up 3 days ago with Selena Kyle's card. That's a question all by itself. The other two were moving, spreading out, boxing him in. Naruto catalogued their positions automatically, noting the knife in one man's belt, the gun tucked into another's waistband, the way the leader kept his hands visible because he wanted to be seen. So what happens now? Naruto asked. What happens is you give us the card, you tell us what she told you, and maybe. The man smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Maybe we let you walk away. Naruto looked at the knife. The gun. The three men who thought they had all the advantages. He thought about what Selena had said. Everyone's a threat. The only question is who they're a threat to. I don't have the card anymore, he said. The leader's smile faded. Then you're useless. He moved fast. For a normal person, too fast. His hand closed on Naruto's collar, lifting, and for a moment Naruto let himself be lifted, let himself be positioned exactly where they wanted him. Then he moved. His forehead connected with the man's nose. There was a crunch, a spray of blood, a sound like a dropped bag of meat. Naruto dropped, spun, swept the second man's legs out from under him before he could reach for the knife. The third was faster, hand closing on the gun, and Naruto was already moving, his palms slamming into the man's wrist, feeling something give way as the gun clattered to the pavement. It took less than 10 seconds. Naruto stood over three men who weren't getting up anytime soon, his breath steady, his hands steady, and felt nothing but the hollow where his chakra should have been. You're not useless, said a voice from above. Naruto looked up. Selena sat on a fire escape, legs swinging, watching him with something that might have been approval. And you're not as subtle as you think you are, he said. She dropped, landing without a sound, and walked past him to the man with the broken nose. Crouched. Pulled something from his pocket, a phone, a wallet, a folded piece of paper. These are Falcone's men, she said, standing. Which means someone told them about you, and someone's going to be very unhappy that they came back empty-handed. Naruto watched her tuck the paper into her own pocket. Falcone? Crime boss. Old family. The kind of people who don't like strangers showing up with my card. She looked at him, and for the first time there was something serious in her eyes. I didn't mean to put you in the crosshairs. You didn't. I gave you my card. In this city, that's the same thing. Naruto shook his head. I asked for help. You gave it. Whatever happens after that. He stopped, looked at the three men groaning on the ground. That's on them. Selena stared at him for a long moment. You're strange, she said finally. So I've been told. A smile tugged at her mouth. Come on. I know a place that's still serving coffee, and we need to talk about what happens when Falcone sends more than 3 idiots with guns. She walked past him, and Naruto followed, because what else was he going to do? Go back to the room with the plant and the sagging bed and the window that showed nothing? I need to understand this city, he said as they walked. The rules. The people. What I'm supposed to do here. Selena glanced at him sideways. You're assuming there are rules. There are always rules. Even the worst places have them. She was quiet for a block, navigating the cracked sidewalks and broken streetlights with the ease of someone who'd memorized every hazard. There are rules, she agreed finally. Don't trust cops. Don't owe anyone anything. Don't let them see you bleed. She stopped at a corner, waiting for a car that didn't have its lights on to pass. But mostly, the rule is that Gotham takes what it wants, and you either take something back or you end up in the river. Naruto looked at the river in the distance, dark water reflecting nothing. I don't want to take anything, he said. Selena laughed, and this time it wasn't sharp at all. It was almost sad. Then you're not going to last long, Blondie. She pushed open the door to a cafe that looked closed, and Naruto followed her into the warm light and the smell of coffee, and tried not to think about how right she might be. The plant in his room, miles away, stretched toward the window as if searching for something it couldn't quite reach. The cafe was called something Italian that Naruto couldn't pronounce. Selena waved at the man behind the counter like she'd been coming here for years, and they took a booth in the back where the light didn't quite reach and the walls seemed to absorb sound. Falcone's going to want to know who you are, Selena said, stirring coffee that was mostly cream. And when his men tell him you handled them without breaking a sweat, he's going to want to know more. Naruto's coffee was black. He'd never had coffee before 3 days ago. He still wasn't sure he liked it. Then I'll tell him. Tell him what? That you fell out of the sky with no ID, no history, and the ability to take down 3 armed men with your bare hands? She set her spoon down with a click. That's not an explanation. That's a challenge. He hadn't thought of it that way. In Konoha, strangers were investigated, watched, given a chance to prove themselves. Here, it seemed, strangers were threats until proven otherwise, and sometimes even then. I need allies, he said quietly. People who can tell me how this city works. How to get back to. He stopped. How to survive. Selena's eyes sharpened. You're looking for a way out. I'm looking for a way home. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I know someone who might be able to help. Not with the getting home part, that's not really her thing, but with understanding what you are. Why you can move the way you do without the training most people need to do half of what you did tonight. Naruto's pulse quickened. Who? Her name's Ivy. She's different. Like you? Selena hesitated, and Naruto got the sense that she didn't hesitate often. She'll want to meet you. But I'm warning you now, she's not like me. She doesn't trust anyone, and she has reasons for that. I'm used to people not trusting me. Selena looked at him for a long moment. Yeah, she said finally. I'm starting to see that. Ivy's territory was a greenhouse in the middle of a dead zone. That was the only way Naruto could think of it. The blocks around the structure were abandoned, boarded windows, collapsed roofs, the kind of decay that took decades to achieve. But the greenhouse itself was alive. Glass panels that caught what little light the city offered, plants spilling out of broken windows like they were trying to escape, vines climbing walls that had no business supporting anything green. Selena stopped at the edge of the property. She knows we're here. She always knows. How? You'll see. Naruto followed her through a gap in a fence that had been pushed aside deliberately, and the moment his foot touched the soil inside the greenhouse's perimeter, he felt it. Something was here. Something that breathed slower than humans, that reached and grew and waited. It wasn't chakra, it was different, older, more patient, but it was something, and it recognized him. The greenhouse door opened before they reached it. A woman stood in the doorway. Red hair that caught the light like fire, green eyes that seemed to have more depth than they should, skin that was the color of cream and something else, something that made Naruto think of petals unfurling. She was beautiful in the way that poison was beautiful, bright colors to warn you before you died. I told you not to bring people here, Selena, she said. Her voice was low, measured, each word placed exactly where she wanted it. This one's different. They're always different until they're not. Naruto stepped forward. I'm Naruto. Ivy's eyes moved to him, and something flickered in their depths. Interest? Surprise? He couldn't tell. You're not from here, she said. No. You don't have the stink of this city on you. Not yet. She moved closer, and Naruto caught the scent of flowers, earth, something green and growing. But you will. Everyone does, eventually. Selena said you might be able to help me. Ivy's laugh was soft, almost silent. Selena says a lot of things. Mostly lies. She circled him, and Naruto let her, feeling the weight of her attention like sunlight. You move like someone who's been trained since birth. But your body isn't right for the training you've had. What do you mean? I mean your muscles, your bones, your reflexes, they're all wrong. You should be faster than this, stronger. Like something's missing. She stopped in front of him, close enough to touch. What did they take from you? Naruto's breath caught. No one had asked that. Not Selena, not the people on the streets, not the men who tried to hurt him. They'd all asked what he was, where he was from, what he could do. But Ivy had looked at him and seen the absence. Something I didn't know I needed until it was gone, he said quietly. Ivy's eyes didn't soften. But they didn't harden either. Come inside, she said. Before the city decides to take more. The inside of the greenhouse was a world apart from Gotham. Naruto had seen forests, had grown up surrounded by trees that had stood for centuries, but this was different. This was wildness contained, life pushed into corners and forced to grow in places that should have killed it. Plants from climates that didn't exist here, flowers that bloomed in colors he'd never seen, vines that moved when he walked past them like they were curious. Ivy led them to a sitting area made of reclaimed wood and living branches, and Naruto sat on a bench that shifted slightly under his weight, accommodating him. Selena says you can fight, Ivy said, settling into a chair that seemed to grow around her. That you took down 3 of Falcone's men without breaking stride. They weren't very good. They were good enough for most people. Ivy's fingers traced the edge of a leaf, and the plant seemed to lean into her touch. But you're not most people. You're something else. Something that shouldn't exist in a world without. She paused. Without whatever it is you're missing. Naruto looked at the plants around him, at the impossible green in a city of gray. How do you do this? Grow things here when nothing else survives? Ivy's smile was thin. I'm like you. Something that shouldn't exist in this world. But I learned to adapt. To make the city work for me instead of against me. How? By understanding what I am. What this place is. She leaned forward, and for a moment her eyes seemed to glow, green and deep and ancient. You're full of life, Naruto. More life than I've ever felt in a person. It's leaking out of you, feeding the plants around you without you even noticing. Naruto looked down at his hands. The plant on the windowsill of his room, reaching towards something it couldn't see. The way the air had bent around him on the rooftops. The feeling of something missing, something he'd been carrying his whole life without knowing it. I don't know how to control it here, he admitted. In my world I had something that helped me focus it. Channel it. Here it's just spilling out. Ivy finished. Like water through cracks in a dam. Yes. She was quiet for a long moment. Selena had been watching the exchange with an expression Naruto couldn't read, something between concern and curiosity. I can help you, Ivy said finally. Not with whatever you lost. I can't give that back. But I can teach you to stop leaking. To use what's still here. She touched the plant beside her, and it bloomed, a flower unfolding in seconds that should have taken weeks. You have more life in you than anything in this dead city. That's valuable. Dangerous. People will want it. Naruto thought about the men in the alley. About the way Falcone's name had been spoken like a curse. About Selena's warning that he'd been noticed. What do you want in return? He asked. Ivy's eyes met his, and for a moment he saw something there that wasn't cold. Wasn't warm either. Something in between. I want to understand what you are, she said. And I want to see if something like you can survive in a place like this without becoming part of the rot. Naruto nodded slowly. That's fair. Selena made a sound that might have been a laugh. That's more than fair. That's practically generous, coming from her. Ivy shot her a look that could have wilted lesser plants. Don't push it. The first session was the hardest. Ivy took him to a room at the back of the greenhouse where the light was filtered and the air was thick with humidity. Plants lined the walls, their leaves dripping condensation, their roots visible through clear containers that showed the soil moving like something alive. Sit, Ivy said, pointing to a cushion on the floor. Naruto sat. The cushion was warm, like something had been sleeping on it recently. Close your eyes. He did. Now feel for it. Whatever you're missing. The thing that's not here. Naruto reached inside himself, to the place where his chakra had always been, the warm river that had flowed through every part of him since before he could remember. Nothing. Just emptiness. A hollow space where something vital used to be. I can't, he said, opening his eyes. It's not there. Ivy knelt in front of him, her face close to his. You're looking for something big. Something obvious. Stop looking for the river and look for the water that's still in the cracks. I don't understand. She took his hands. Her skin was cool, smooth, and Naruto felt something move under it, not pulse, not breath, something slower and more patient. Close your eyes again. He did. Now imagine the emptiness as a space. A container. Something that used to hold something, but doesn't anymore. Naruto pictured it. A bowl turned upside down. A room with the furniture taken out. A riverbed gone dry. Now look at the edges, Ivy said, her voice softer now, almost hypnotic. Look at where the emptiness meets the rest of you. He looked. And he saw it. Tiny, almost invisible. Flecks of light caught in the boundaries of the emptiness, like dust motes in a sunbeam. His chakra, not the river, not the flood, but fragments of it, trapped in the places where it had touched him deepest. There, he breathed. Yes, Ivy said. There. She guided his hands to his own chest, pressing them flat against his ribs. Now pull. Not hard. Not fast. Just ask it to come back. Naruto focused on the flecks of light, on the tiny pieces of himself scattered across the edges of the emptiness. He didn't force. He didn't demand. He just reached. And they came. Not a flood. Not even a stream. Just a trickle, thin as a thread, but there. Warmth spreading through his chest, his arms, his fingers. Light that had no color but felt like home. He opened his eyes. Ivy was staring at him. Her expression had shifted from clinical interest to something else, something that looked almost like hunger before she shut it down. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I can breathe again." She nodded slowly, releasing his hands. "That's enough for today. Too much more and you'll burn out what you have left." Naruto looked at his hands. They were trembling slightly, the warmth still fading from them. But the emptiness wasn't empty anymore. There was something there, thin and fragile, but there. "Thank you," he said. Ivy stood, brushing off her dress, and Naruto saw her compose herself, saw the mask slide back into place. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "Falcone's not going to wait for you to learn control. And once he figures out what you can really do." She looked at the plants around them, at the way they were leaning toward Naruto like they wanted something from him. "He's not going to stop until he has it." Selena was waiting outside the greenhouse, leaning against a wall that was being slowly consumed by ivy. "So?" she asked. "So he's not normal," Ivy said, joining her. "Not even close." Selena raised an eyebrow. "That's your professional opinion?" "My professional opinion is that whatever he's leaking is enough to feed every plant in this greenhouse for a year. And he's not even trying." Ivy's voice was calm, but Selena had known her long enough to hear the edge underneath. "If someone figures out how to tap into that, to use it, they could do a lot of damage," Selena finished. "They could change the city." They both looked through the glass at Naruto, who was sitting on the cushion with his eyes closed, his hands pressed flat against his chest like he was holding something precious. "He's not a weapon, Ivy," Selena said quietly. "Everything's a weapon here. It's just a matter of who's holding it." Selena pushed off from the wall. "Then maybe we should make sure we're the ones holding it." Ivy's eyes narrowed. "That's not what I meant." "Isn't it?" Selena smiled, but there was nothing warm in it. "You've been looking for something that could fight back against the people who take everything. Something that could make this city pay for what it did to you. And now this kid falls out of the sky with more power in his pinky finger than most metas have in their whole bodies, and you're telling me you're not thinking about how to use him?" Ivy's expression didn't change, but the plants around her stirred, vines curling tighter around the walls. "I'm thinking about how to keep him alive," she said. "Because if Falcone gets him, he's dead. If the bat gets him, he's disappeared. If any of the other players in this city get wind of what he is..." She stopped. "He doesn't belong here, Selena. He's not built for this place. And if we don't help him, no one will." Selena was quiet for a long moment. Then she sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Fine," she said. "But we do this my way. No games. No manipulation. He's already been through something. I can see it in the way he moves, the way he looks at the sky like he's expecting it to be different. If we try to use him, we lose him." Ivy looked through the glass at Naruto, who had opened his eyes and was watching the plants with something like wonder. "Maybe," she said softly. "Or maybe we're the only chance he has." Naruto emerged from the greenhouse an hour later, feeling more like himself than he had since he'd landed in this nightmare of a city. The thread of chakra inside him was still there, thin but steady, a pulse of warmth that reminded him he wasn't completely empty. Selena and Ivy were waiting by the gate, and there was something different about the way they were standing, closer together than before, like they'd come to some kind of agreement. "I need to talk to you," Selena said before he could speak. "About what happens next." Naruto waited. "Falcone's not going to let the alley thing go. 3 of his men taken down by a kid with no ID, no history, no record? That's not an embarrassment. That's a challenge. He's going to come for you, and when he does, he's not going to send amateurs." "So what do I do?" Selena and Ivy exchanged a look. "You stay with us," Ivy said. "For now. Until we figure out what you are and how to keep you alive." Naruto looked between them. "Both of you?" "Don't sound so surprised," Selena said dryly. "We're not all heartless criminals. Some of us are just regular criminals with soft spots for lost puppies." "I'm not a puppy. You keep up with me across rooftops, you can take down 3 armed men, and you have more raw life energy than anything I've ever seen." Selena grinned. "You're the weirdest puppy I've ever met." Naruto wanted to argue. He wanted to tell them he could take care of himself, that he'd survived worse than a city full of criminals, that he didn't need anyone's protection. But the truth was, he was tired. Tired of the emptiness where his chakra used to be. Tired of a city that had no sunsets, no trees, no places that felt like home. Tired of being alone in a place where being alone meant being dead. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. Selena's grin softened into something almost real. Good. Now let's get you somewhere that doesn't smell like soil and desperation. Ivy made an offended sound. My greenhouse does not smell like desperation. It smells like plants that are trying very hard to survive in a city that wants them dead. That's literally the definition of desperation. Naruto followed them out of the dead zone, listening to them argue, and for the first time since he'd landed in Gotham, the weight on his chest felt a little lighter. The apartment was in a part of the city that Naruto hadn't explored yet: older buildings, narrower streets, windows that had been bricked over generations ago and never unbricked. Ivy led them through a door that looked like it hadn't been opened in years, upstairs that groaned under their weight, to a floor that had been converted into something that was trying very hard not to be what it was. It's not much, Ivy said, pushing open a door. But it's secure. Naruto stepped inside and stopped. The room was larger than he'd expected, with windows that actually let in light, filtered through layers of ivy that grew outside, but light nonetheless. There was a bed, a table, a small kitchenette. Plants everywhere, growing out of pots and cups and things that had probably been something else before the roots claimed them. It's more than I had, Naruto said. Selena had followed them in and was already making herself comfortable on a couch that had definitely not been there when Ivy had first opened the door. Ivy's been collecting places like this for years. Safe houses, bolt holes, places to disappear when the city gets too loud. Gotham's always too loud, Ivy said, but there was no heat in it. She moved through the room, touching plants, adjusting pots, and Naruto watched the way her fingers lingered on leaves like she was checking a pulse. This is your place, he realized. I'm staying in your place. Ivy glanced at him. You're staying in one of my places. There's a difference. Selena snorted. She has 13 of these scattered across the city. Possibly more. She won't tell me the exact number. And I'm not going to. Naruto sat on the edge of the bed, testing the mattress. It was better than the one in the other building. Softer. Cleaner. Why are you doing this? Both of you? Selena and Ivy exchanged another one of those looks, the kind that carried conversations Naruto wasn't privy to. Because you're not going to survive this city on your own, Ivy said finally. And because... She stopped, her fingers stilling on a leaf. Because you have something this city doesn't. Something it's been missing for a very long time. What? She looked at him, and for a moment her eyes were just green, just human, just a woman who had seen too much to hope for anything good. Life, she said quietly. Pure, uncomplicated life. Not the kind that fights and claws and tears its way through concrete. The kind that just grows. Because it's supposed to. Naruto didn't know what to say to that. So he said nothing. Selena broke the silence with a stretch and a yawn that was probably exaggerated. Well, as lovely as this heart-to-heart is, some of us have things to do tonight. Ivy, you're keeping him here? For now. He needs to practice. And he needs to not be on the streets when Falcone's people start looking. Selena stood, and Naruto saw her hesitation, saw the way her eyes lingered on him for a moment too long. Be careful, she said. It could have been directed at either of them. She was gone before Naruto could respond, the door closing behind her with a soft click that seemed louder than it should have been in the quiet room. Ivy moved to the window, looking out at the ivy-covered wall. She's not as hard as she pretends to be. I know, Naruto said. You've known her for 3 days. You don't need a long time to see someone. You just need to pay attention. Ivy turned to look at him, and there was something in her expression that Naruto couldn't quite name. Surprise, maybe? Or recognition. Sit, she said, gesturing to the floor. We're going to try again. The next hour was brutal. Ivy pushed him harder than before, making him reach for the fragments of chakra again and again, pulling them together into something that almost resembled the flow he remembered. Each time he thought he had it, the thread would fray, the warmth would fade, and he'd be left with nothing but the emptiness. You're forcing it, Ivy said after his 5th failure. You're trying to make it be what it was instead of letting it be what it is. What's the difference? Ivy knelt beside him, and Naruto caught the scent of soil and something floral, something that made him think of forests he'd never seen. The difference is acceptance. You lost something. It's not coming back. But that doesn't mean you're empty. It means you're different. Naruto's hands clenched in his lap. I've been different my whole life. I thought I'd finally found a place where that didn't matter. Where I could be something other than the thing everyone was afraid of. And then you ended up here. And then I ended up here. Ivy was quiet for a long moment. Outside, Naruto could hear the city doing what it always did, grinding, groaning, surviving. I know what it's like to be the thing everyone's afraid of, Ivy said finally. Her voice was softer than he'd heard it before. To have people look at you and see a weapon. A threat. Something to be used or destroyed. Naruto looked at her. Really looked. At the lines around her eyes that weren't from smiling, at the way her hands moved like she was always expecting something to need tending, at the plant that had grown up around her chair like it was trying to protect her. What happened to you? He asked. Ivy's laugh was bitter. What happens to everyone in Gotham? The city happened to me. She stood, moving away from him, and Naruto felt the loss of her presence like a door closing. But I survived. And I made the city pay for what it took. Is that why you're helping me? Because I remind you of what you were? Ivy stopped at the window, her back to him. I'm helping you because you're not like this city. And I want to see if you can stay that way. She turned, and her face was calm again, the cracks sealed over. We're done for tonight. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we work on control, and tomorrow night Selena's going to teach you how to move through the city without being seen. Naruto stood, his legs unsteady from the effort of reaching for something that kept slipping away. What about you? What about me? Are you going to be here tomorrow? Ivy's lips quirked, almost a smile. I'm always here. This city can't get rid of me. She left before he could ask anything else, and Naruto stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by plants that seemed to breathe in time with him, and tried to figure out how he'd gone from being completely alone to having two women he barely knew offering to protect him. He didn't understand it. He didn't understand them. But for the first time since he'd landed in this nightmare of a city, he didn't feel like he was drowning. 3 days became a week. A week of waking up in Ivy's apartment, of practicing control until his hands shook and his head pounded, of learning to walk the streets of Gotham with Selena as his guide. She taught him the city's rhythms, the places where you could walk safely and the places where you never walked alone. She taught him which symbols meant what, which colors belonged to which gangs, which corners belonged to which crime families. She taught him to see the city the way she saw it, a chessboard where everyone was a piece and no one was safe. You're learning fast, she said one night, perched on a rooftop that overlooked the Diamond District. Too fast for someone who's only been here a week. Naruto sat beside her, legs dangling over the edge. I've been trained since I was a kid. This is just different rules. Same game. Selena looked at him sideways. What kind of training makes a kid into someone who can fight like you do? The kind where your village expects you to be a weapon. She was quiet for a moment. My father expected me to be something too. Something I wasn't. Naruto didn't push. He learned that about Selena. She gave what she wanted to give, and trying to take more just made her pull back. He used to lock me in closets, she said after a long silence. When I was small. Said it would teach me to be quiet. To be good. Her voice was flat, detached, like she was reciting something she'd read. It taught me that no one was going to save me. That if I wanted out, I had to get out myself. Naruto thought about his own childhood. The way the villagers had looked at him like he was a monster wearing a child's face. The way they'd whispered when they thought he couldn't hear. My village hated me, he said. When I was a kid. They thought I was dangerous. Something that shouldn't exist. What changed? He thought about Irika. About Team 7. About 1,000 moments where people had looked at him and seen something other than the monster. I found people who saw me, he said. Really saw me. And I made them see that I wasn't what everyone thought I was. Selena was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. And now you're here. Without them. Naruto's chest tightened. For now. Think you'll find your way back? He wanted to say yes. He wanted to believe that the emptiness inside him was temporary, that the thread of chakra he was rebuilding would become a rope, then a bridge, then a way home. But he'd learned something this week, something he hadn't wanted to learn. This city, Gotham, it didn't let go. It took and it took and it took, and what it didn't take, it broke. I don't know, he said honestly. Selena reached out and touched his arm. Just a touch, brief and light, but Naruto felt it like a brand. Then you survive, she said. Until you figure it out. That's what we do here. Harley Quinn found him on day 8. Naruto was coming back from a supply run. Ivy had sent him to a specific shop for specific soil, and he'd spent 20 minutes arguing with the owner about why he needed 3 bags instead of 2, when a figure dropped out of nowhere and landed directly in his path. Well, hello there. Naruto's hands came up automatically, ready for a fight, but the figure just grinned. A wide, manic grin that split her face in half, attached to a woman in red and black who was vibrating with so much energy she seemed to blur at the edges. You're the mystery guy. The one Selena's been hiding. The one Ivy's been growing plants for. She circled him, and Naruto turned to keep her in front of him, dropping the bags of soil in the process. Oh, you're cute. Like really cute. Like a little blonde fox who wandered into the wrong forest. I'm not. Selena said you can fight. She said you took down 3 of Falcone's guys like they were nothing. She stopped in front of him, close enough that Naruto could see the paint on her face, the mismatched eyes that were somehow both insane and completely focused. Wanna fight me? What? I wanna see if you're as good as she says. Come on, just a little spar. Nothing serious. Unless you make it serious, in which case it'll be very serious, and also probably very fun. She was bouncing on her heels, and Naruto realized with a start that she was genuinely excited, genuinely happy, in a way that had nothing to do with the danger she was presenting. I'm not fighting you, he said, bending to pick up the soil. I have to get this back to Ivy. Come on. Everyone's been talking about you. The mysterious stranger who appeared out of nowhere, no ID, no history, just BM, right in the middle of Selena's job. That's the most exciting thing that's happened in weeks. She grabbed his arm, and Naruto felt her strength, more than a normal person should have, but not more than he could handle. Please? Just one little punch? A kick? A throw? Anything. Naruto looked at her. Really looked. At the 2 bright eyes, the too wide smile, the way she held herself like she was always waiting for something to hit her. He'd seen people like this before. People who used chaos as armor. People who smiled because the alternative was screaming. Why do you want to fight me so bad? He asked. Harley's grin flickered, just for a second. Because everyone's been talking about how special you are. How different. And I wanted to see for myself if that was true. She released his arm, and her voice was quieter when she spoke again. Different people don't usually last long in Gotham. They get chewed up and spit out. But you're still here. Still standing. And I want to know why. Naruto set the bags down. You want to know if I'm dangerous. I want to know if you're one of us. He didn't know what that meant. Not really. But he saw something in her face, something hungry, something lonely, something that recognized the same thing in him. He raised his hands, palms open. Not a fighting stance. Not quite. I'm not going to fight you, he said. But I'll let you try to hit me. Harley's grin came back, wider than before. Oh, you are fun. She moved fast. Faster than a normal person, faster than the men in the alley, faster than anyone Naruto had fought since he'd landed in the city. Her fist came at his face with enough force to break bone, and Naruto sidestepped, letting it pass inches from his ear. She spun, her legs sweeping toward his knees, and he jumped, flipping over her and landing behind her with his hands still open. Harley turned, and she was laughing now, genuine laughter that echoed off the narrow walls of the alley. You're good. Like actually good. Not just tough, but you move like you've been doing this your whole life. I have, Naruto said. Just not here. She charged again, faster this time, and Naruto let her come, reading her movements, her tells, the way she telegraphed each strike just before she threw it. He dodged, weaved, let her blows come close enough to feel but never close enough to land. After 30 seconds, she stopped, breathing hard, her smile so wide it looked like it hurt. You're not even trying, she said. You're just letting me chase you. You said you wanted to know if I was dangerous. Naruto lowered his hands. I'm not. Not to you. Harley stared at him for a long moment. The manic energy was gone, replaced by something quieter, something that looked almost fragile. You know what happens to people who aren't dangerous in this city? She asked. They survive anyway, Naruto said. Or they find people who help them. He picked up the bags of soil, settling them under his arms. I have to get this back to Ivy. But if you want to talk, really talk, not fight, I'm at her place most days. He walked past her, heading toward the street, and made it 3 steps before she called out. Hey! He stopped. Harley was still standing in the middle of the alley, her hands shoved in the pockets of her shorts, her expression somewhere between confused and something else he couldn't name. You're not gonna ask why I wanted to fight you? You said you wanted to know if I was one of you. Naruto said. That's not something you can figure out by hitting someone. He turned and walked out of the alley, leaving her standing there, and tried not to think about the look on her face when he'd said the words people who helped them. She showed up at Ivy's place 3 hours later. Naruto was in the middle of a control exercise, holding a single thread of chakra steady while Ivy made him recite the names of plants he'd never heard of, when the door burst open and Harley Quinn came through it like a whirlwind. Ivy! Ivy! Your new friend is weird. Ivy didn't look up from the seedling she was tending. Harley. Like, really weird. He let me chase him around an alley for like a full minute and didn't even throw one punch. Not one. Harley. And then he said I could come talk to him if I wanted. Who does that? In Gotham? Harley. Ivy finally looked up, her expression patient in a way that suggested she'd had this conversation many times before. Why are you here? Harley stopped, her momentum crashing into her chest like a wave hitting a wall. I wanted to see him again. Naruto had been sitting on the floor, the thread of chakra dissipating as soon as the door opened. He stood slowly, watching Harley's face cycle through about 12 emotions in the span of 3 seconds. You came back, he said. Don't sound so surprised. I'm a very impulsive person. I do things all the time for no reason. Naruto looked at Ivy, who was watching the exchange with an expression that was trying very hard to be neutral and failing. She's not good at asking for what she wants, Ivy said. I am too good at asking for what I want. I want. Harley stopped, and for a moment she looked almost lost. I want to know why you're here. In Gotham. In Ivy's place. Being. She waved her hands in the air like she was trying to catch something. Being like this. Naruto didn't have an answer for that. Not one that made sense. He was here because he'd fallen out of the sky. He was in Ivy's place because Selena had brought him. He was being like this because he didn't know how to be anything else. I'm looking for a way home, he said finally. And until I find it, I'm trying not to die. Harley's face did something complicated. That's it? That's all? What else is there? She stared at him for a long moment. Then she laughed, not the manic laugh from before, but something smaller, something that might have been sad if it hadn't been so sharp. In this city? Nothing. She crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped onto the couch, sprawling across it like she owned it. So where are we sleeping? Because if I'm gonna be part of this whole keeping the weird foxboy alive thing, I'm gonna need a bed that doesn't smell like plants. Ivy sighed. Harley. What? You have like a million rooms. And Selena's gonna be here later anyway, you know she is, she's been hovering around this place like a cat with a new scratching post. I am not hovering, Selena said from the doorway. Everyone turned. She was leaning against the frame, arms crossed, and there was something in her expression that Naruto was starting to recognize, amusement, mostly, with a layer of something softer underneath. You followed him home, Ivy said. I came to check on him. There's a difference. You followed him home, Harley said gleefully. You never follow anyone home. The last time you followed someone home was… We don't talk about that. Selena cut her off, and for a moment there was real heat in her voice. Harley held up her hands in surrender. Okay. We don't talk about the thing we don't talk about. But you did follow him home. Selena's eyes met Naruto's, and he saw something there that he hadn't seen before. Something that might have been embarrassment, if Selena Kyle was capable of being embarrassed. I was in the neighborhood, she said. Bull. Harley, Ivy said again, and this time there was steel in her voice. Enough. The room fell silent. Naruto stood in the middle of it, surrounded by 3 women who had somehow become part of his life without him meaning for them to, and tried to figure out what he was supposed to feel. Okay, he said, and everyone looked at him. Okay. If you're all going to be here, we need rules. Harley perked up. Rules? First rule, no fighting each other. Not for real. Where's the fun in that? Second rule, no secrets that could get someone killed. Selena's expression flickered. That's a lot to ask in this city. I know, Naruto said. But I'm not from this city. And if I'm going to survive here, I need to be able to trust the people I'm with. He looked at each of them in turn. Ivy, with her careful masks and her green eyes that saw too much. Selena, with her sharp edges and her softer center. Harley, with her chaos and her hunger for something real. I'm not asking you to change who you are, he said. I'm asking you to let me be who I am. The silence stretched. Then Harley grinned, wide and bright and maybe, for once, not hiding anything. I like you, she said. You're weird and you're not scary and you don't treat me like I'm gonna break or explode or whatever people usually think. She sat up, hugging her knees to her chest. I'll try the rules thing. For you. Ivy moved to her plants, touching a leaf, checking a stem. I don't make promises I can't keep. But I'll tell you what I know, when it matters. Selena was the last to speak. She was still leaning against the doorframe, still watching Naruto with those cat eyes that missed nothing. Trust is earned, she said. And in this city, it's usually a mistake. But you… She paused. You might be worth the risk. Naruto nodded slowly. That's all I'm asking. Later that night, when Ivy had retreated to her part of the greenhouse and Harley had claimed the couch and fallen asleep with her mouth open and her limbs everywhere, Selena found Naruto on the small balcony, looking out at a city that never really got dark. Can't sleep? She asked, leaning against the railing beside him. I'm not used to this place yet. The quiet. Selena laughed softly. You think Gotham is quiet? I think it's quiet in the wrong places. At home, when it was quiet, it meant peace. Here, quiet just means something's waiting. Selena was quiet for a moment, and Naruto could feel her beside him, close enough to touch. You don't talk about home much, she said. There's not much to say. It's not here. That's what matters. It matters more than that. Selena's voice was gentle in a way he hadn't heard before. Where you come from. Who you were. That's not something you can just leave behind. Naruto thought about the village. About the faces he might never see again. About the life he built out of nothing, the people who had seen him when everyone else had looked away. I didn't leave it behind, he said. It left me. Selena turned to face him, and in the dim light from the city, her eyes were almost warm. You'll find your way back, she said. Or you'll find a way to make this place something you don't want to leave. She reached out and touched his hand, just for a moment, just a brush of fingers against skin. Either way, you're not alone here. She was gone before he could respond, slipping back inside like she'd never been there at all. Naruto stood on the balcony, feeling the ghost of her touch on his hand, and tried to remember what it felt like to be somewhere he understood. The city didn't answer. But for once, the silence didn't feel empty. 2 weeks. That's how long it took for Naruto to realize he wasn't just staying with them anymore. He was living with them. The apartment had become something none of them had planned, a strange, chaotic household that shouldn't work but somehow did. Harley had claimed the couch as her territory, though she rarely slept there, preferring to crash in whatever room she'd been in when exhaustion finally caught up with her. Ivy came and went, her greenhouse always her first priority, but she was there more often than she'd ever been, her plants slowly taking over the apartment's surfaces. Selena was the most consistent, appearing at odd hours with food or information or just presence. And Naruto was there, in the middle of it all, trying to hold on to something he wasn't sure he deserved. You're brooding, Selena said one evening, dropping onto the couch beside him. You've been staring at that wall for 10 minutes. Naruto blinked, realizing she was right. He'd been sitting on the floor, back against the couch, watching the play of light from the street outside and thinking about nothing at all. I'm not brooding. You're doing that thing where your face goes blank and you forget to breathe. Ivy calls it the void stare. Harley calls it being creepy. I call it brooding. Naruto turned to look at her. She was stretched out on the couch, her feet propped up on the arm, her head tilted toward him. She'd shed the catsuit for something softer, jeans and a dark sweater that made her look younger, less like Catwoman and more like Selena. I was thinking about home, he admitted. Selena's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted. Anything specific? The first time someone believed in me. He paused, trying to find the words. I was a kid. 7 maybe. The whole village hated me. Thought I was a monster. But there was this teacher, Iruka. He was the first person who looked at me and didn't see something to be afraid of. What changed? I did something. Something stupid and dangerous, trying to prove I wasn't what they thought. And Iruka got hurt protecting me. Naruto's voice was quiet. He almost died. And it was my fault. Selena was quiet for a moment. He didn't die though. No. And he didn't blame you. He said it was his choice. That he'd do it again. Naruto's hands clenched in his lap. He was the first person who made me think I might be worth something. That maybe I wasn't just the thing everyone was afraid of. Selena sat up, moving to sit beside him on the floor. Close, but not touching. You know what I see when I look at you? She asked. Naruto shook his head. I see someone who's been through something that should have broken him. Something that's still breaking him, maybe. But he's still here. Still trying. Still. She paused, and Naruto heard something in her voice that he'd never heard before. Vulnerability. Still good. Even in a place like this. Naruto looked at her. At the sharp lines of her face, softened in the dim light. At the eyes that had seen too much to be surprised by anything, but still looked at him like he was something worth seeing. You're not what I expected, he said. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone harder. Someone who didn't. He stopped. Didn't what? Didn't care. Selena laughed, and it was different from her other laughs. Smaller. More real. I care more than I should. It's the problem with being a cat. We pretend we don't need anyone, and then someone shows up with a soft voice and a sad face, and suddenly we're letting them sleep on our couch and stealing things to keep them fed. I didn't ask you to steal anything. You didn't have to. She leaned back against the couch, looking up at the ceiling. That's the thing about caring, Blondie. You don't get to decide. It just happens. Naruto sat beside her, their shoulders almost touching, and let himself feel the weight of the moment. 2 weeks ago, he'd been alone in a city that wanted to eat him alive. Now he was sitting on a floor with a woman who stole things to feed him, in an apartment that smelled like soil and leather and something floral, and the emptiness inside him felt a little less empty. The next morning, Harley found them like that, asleep against the couch, Naruto's head tipped back, Selena's cheek resting against his shoulder. Oh my god! Harley shrieked, and both of them jerked awake. You guys slept together! Selena's eyes snapped open, her hand already moving toward a weapon that wasn't there. What? You're on the floor! Together! With your heads touching! That's basically sleeping together in Selena language. It's called falling asleep, Harley. It happens to people who don't get enough rest because someone keeps them up all night with stories about hyenas and exploding chemistry sets. Those were very important stories. And you said you liked them? I said I liked that you weren't dead. There's a difference. Harley was grinning, but there was something in her eyes that wasn't quite teasing. Something that looked almost relieved. You guys are cute, she said, and her voice was softer. Like really cute. It's gross. Naruto rubbed his eyes, trying to wake up. What time is it? Time for you to do your weird energy thing with Ivy. She's already in the greenhouse, and she's got that face on, so you should probably go before she comes looking for you. Selena was already standing, smoothing down her sweater, and Naruto saw the mask sliding back into place. The vulnerability of last night was gone, replaced by the sharp edges and careful distance she wore like armor. I have things to do, she said. Falcone's been quiet for too long. That's not good. Be careful, Naruto said, and the words came out before he could stop them. Selena paused at the door, her hand on the frame. She didn't turn around, but he saw her shoulders relax, just slightly. Always. She was gone before he could say anything else, and Naruto was left with Harley's two sharp eyes on him. You like her? Harley said. Not a question. She's... Naruto stopped, not sure what she was. Not sure what any of this was. She's helped me. A lot. Harley's grin softened into something that might have been understanding. Yeah. That's what she does. Helps people, pretends she doesn't care, runs away before anyone can say thank you. She sat on the couch, pulling her knees up to her chest. She's been doing it since I met her. Since before I met her, probably. How did you meet? Harley's face flickered, and for a moment Naruto saw something behind the chaos. Something that looked like pain, carefully buried. Bad time, she said. Real bad. She stopped, her fingers picking at a loose thread on her shorts. I was with someone. Someone who wasn't good for me. And Selena found me, and she didn't ask questions, didn't tell me I was stupid for staying, didn't. She laughed, but it was hollow. She just sat with me. For 3 hours. In an alley. While I cried about someone who never cried for me. Naruto sat beside her, not too close, but close enough. I know what that's like, he said quietly. Being with someone who's bad for you. Someone who makes you think they're the only one who could ever want you. Harley looked at him, and for once her eyes weren't wild or manic. They were just sad. Yeah? Yeah. He thought about the people who'd looked at him like he was nothing. The ones who'd made him believe he had to earn his place in the world, that he wasn't worth anything unless he was useful. I had someone like that. Not the same as yours, maybe. But someone who made me feel like I had to prove myself. Over and over. And every time I did, they just moved the line. What happened? I found people who didn't move the line. He looked at her. I found people who just wanted me to be there. Not because I was useful. Just because I was there. Harley was quiet for a long moment. Then she leaned against him, her head on his shoulder, and Naruto let her. Ivy says you're full of life, Harley said. Like more life than anything in the city. She says it's why the plants like you. I don't know about that. I do. She closed her eyes, and Naruto felt her relax against him, the constant tension in her body easing. You feel warm. Like sitting in sunlight. I haven't felt sunlight in a long time. Naruto didn't move. Didn't speak. He just sat there, letting her lean on him, letting the warmth of his chakra, what little he'd managed to reclaim, seep into her like she was a plant that needed light. I'm not leaving, he said finally. If you're worried about that. Harley's laugh was muffled against his shoulder. I'm not worried. You're stuck with us, remember? You made rules and everything. I remember. Good. She shifted, getting comfortable. Now be quiet. I'm sleeping. She was asleep in minutes, her breathing evening out, her body going slack against his. Naruto sat with her, feeling the weight of her trust, and tried to remember the last time someone had fallen asleep on him without expecting anything in return. He couldn't. Ivy found them an hour later. She stood in the doorway, watching them, and there was something in her expression that Naruto couldn't quite read. Not anger. Not jealousy. Something softer. She doesn't let people do that, Ivy said quietly, moving into the room. Fall asleep on them. She hasn't. She stopped, touching Harley's hair with fingers that were almost gentle. Not since before. Naruto looked down at Harley's sleeping face. Without the manic energy, she looked younger. Smaller. Like someone who'd been running for a very long time and had finally stopped. She needs something, Naruto said. Something she's not getting. Ivy's laugh was soft. We all need something we're not getting. That's Gotham. No. Naruto shook his head. It's not just the city. It's... He struggled to find the words. She's waiting for something. For someone. And she's been waiting so long she's forgotten what she's waiting for. Ivy's hand stilled on Harley's hair. You see a lot for someone who's only been here 2 weeks. I've been the thing people were waiting for. The thing they thought would fix everything. His voice was quiet. And I've been the thing that disappointed them. Ivy knelt beside him, and Naruto caught the scent of earth and flowers, of something green and growing. Her face was close to his, her green eyes searching. What are you waiting for? She asked. Naruto thought about it. About home. About the people he'd left behind. About the emptiness inside him that was slowly filling, thread by thread, with something that wasn't chakra but was close enough. I don't know anymore, he admitted. At first I just wanted to go back. To fix things. To be where I was supposed to be. He looked at Harley, asleep on his shoulder, and then at Ivy, watching him with eyes that saw too much. But now I don't know if going back would fix anything. Or if it would just leave something broken here. Ivy was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different. Softer. More human. Do you want to know why I helped you? She asked. Really helped you. Not just gave you a place to stay, but taught you to use what was left of your power? Naruto nodded. Because when you walked into my greenhouse, the plants reached for you. She smiled, and it was almost sad. They've never reached for anyone. Not for Selena, not for Harley, not even for me. But they reached for you. Like you were something they'd been waiting for. What does that mean? Ivy touched his chest, her fingers pressing against the spot where his chakra burned dim but steady. It means you're not empty. You never were. You just needed a different kind of soil. She stood, smoothing down her dress, and when she looked at him again, the mask was back. But Naruto had seen what was underneath. He'd seen the cracks. You should eat something, she said. You've been practicing too hard, and you're burning through what you have faster than you're building it. Selena left food in the kitchen. She was gone before he could respond, and Naruto sat with Harley on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of his chakra and the warmth of her trust, and tried to figure out what he was supposed to do with any of it. Selena didn't come back that night. Or the next. On the third day, Harley started pacing. Ivy spent more time in the greenhouse, coming in only to check on them before disappearing again. Naruto sat in the apartment, feeling the silence grow heavier, and tried not to think about what could have happened. She's done this before, Harley said on the third night, her voice too bright, too fast. She disappears all the time. It's what she does. She's a cat, remember? Cats disappear. It's fine. Everything's fine. Naruto watched her pace, watched her hands twist in the fabric of her shorts, watched the manic energy build like a storm about to break. When she disappears, he said carefully, does she usually come back? Harley stopped pacing. Her face did something complicated, cycling through emotions too fast to track. She always comes back, she said. Always. She's Selena. She's too stubborn to not come back. She'd never give anyone the satisfaction. But Harley's hands were shaking. Naruto could see it now, the tremors running through her whole body, the way she was holding herself together by sheer force of will. But last time she disappeared like this, she came back with a broken arm and blood in her hair, and she didn't talk for a week. Harley's voice cracked. And the time before that, she came back with a knife wound in her side that she tried to stitch up herself because she didn't want us to see. And the time before that. She stopped, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. Harley. Naruto stood, moving toward her slowly, like she was a wounded animal that might bolt. Harley, look at me. She looked. Her eyes were too wide, too bright, and Naruto recognized the look. He'd seen it in the mirror, after missions that went wrong, after people he loved had almost died. She's okay, he said. She's smart. She's capable. She's survived this city for years. She's okay. You don't know that. No, he admitted. I don't. But I know that falling apart won't help her. And I know that when she comes back. He caught her hands, stilling the frantic movement. She's going to need you to be here. Not gone. Not lost. Here. Harley stared at him, and for a moment he saw something break behind her eyes. Something she'd been holding for a long time, something she was finally letting go. I can't lose her, she whispered. She's the only one who. She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Naruto pulled her into his arms, and she went, collapsing against him like a puppet with cut strings. She wasn't crying. He didn't think she knew how to cry anymore, but she was shaking, her whole body trembling with the effort of not falling apart. I've got you, he said, and he meant it. I've got you. He held her until the shaking stopped, until her breath evened out, until her hands unclenched from his shirt. Then he sat her on the couch, got her a glass of water, sat beside her while she drank it. She's going to be okay, he said again, and this time he almost believed it. Selena came back on the fourth day. Naruto was alone in the apartment. Harley had finally exhausted herself and was sleeping in Ivy's room, and Ivy was in the greenhouse, doing something with plants that she said couldn't wait, when the door opened and Selena walked in. She looked like hell. Her suit was torn in 3 places, her hair was a mess, and there was a bruise blooming across her cheekbone that was going to be spectacular in a few hours. But she was walking. She was breathing. She was alive. Naruto stood up so fast he nearly knocked over his chair. Selena! Don't, she said, and her voice was rough, tired. Don't do the worried thing. I'm fine. You're not fine. I'm standing. I'm breathing. I'm not bleeding out on the floor. She moved to the couch, dropping onto it with a groan. That's fine in this city. Naruto followed her, standing in front of her, and she looked up at him with eyes that were too tired to hide anything. You were gone for 4 days, he said. I know. Harley was. He stopped, trying to find the right words. She was terrified. Selena's expression flickered. Something that might have been guilt. Something that might have been pain. I know, she said again. I know she was. I know she is. But I couldn't. She stopped, pressing her hands against her face. I had to find out what Falcone was planning. I had to get ahead of it. If I'd come back earlier, if I'd let them see I was worried about you. About us, Naruto corrected. Selena's hands dropped. She looked at him, really looked, and for a moment the mask was completely gone. About you, she said quietly. About all of you. If they knew, if anyone knew that I. She stopped, and Naruto saw something he'd never seen in her before. Fear. Not of the city, not of Falcone, but of something else. Something that mattered more. You don't have to protect us by disappearing, he said, sitting beside her. That's not how it works. That's how it's always worked. No. He shook his head. That's how it's worked for you. Because you've never had people who wanted to protect you back. Selina stared at him. Her hands were in her lap, and Naruto saw them trembling, just slightly. I'm not. She stopped, swallowed. I'm not good at this. At letting people. You don't have to be good at it. You just have to let us try. He reached out and took her hand. She flinched, just for a second, and then she didn't pull away. For a long moment, they sat there, hands touching, neither of them speaking. The apartment was quiet, the city was quiet, and Naruto felt something shift between them. Something that wasn't quite trust yet, but was getting there. I'm sorry, Selina said finally. For disappearing. For. She looked at him, and her eyes were wet, though she wasn't crying. For making you worry. You can make it up to me. How? He smiled, and it was the first real smile he'd had in days. You can tell Harley you're okay. And you can let Ivy patch you up without complaining. Selina laughed, and it was tired and broken, but it was real. Ivy's going to kill me for the suit. She'll get over it. You don't know Ivy. I know she was worried too. She just hides it better. Selina squeezed his hand, and for a moment they sat there, connected by something neither of them had words for. 4 days, Naruto said quietly. I thought. He stopped. What? I thought maybe you weren't coming back. Selina's grip tightened. I'll always come back, she said, and there was something fierce in her voice. To this place. To you. I'll always come back. Naruto nodded, not trusting his voice. They sat in the silence, and it wasn't empty anymore. Harley found them like that an hour later, still on the couch, still holding hands, talking in low voices about things that didn't matter and things that did. Selina! She launched herself across the room, and Selina barely had time to brace herself before Harley hit her, wrapping her arms around her so tight Naruto was surprised she could breathe. I'm okay, Selina said, and her voice was softer than Naruto had ever heard it. I'm okay. You're an idiot, Harley said, and she was crying now, tears running down her face and dripping onto Selina's torn suit. You're a stupid idiot and I hate you and you can't do that, you can't just. I know. Selina's arms came up, wrapping around Harley, holding her. I know. I'm sorry. You better be sorry. You better be so sorry. I'm gonna be mad at you for so long. That's fair. It's more than fair. It's. Harley pulled back, wiping her face with the back of her hand, and her expression was fierce despite the tears. If you do that again, I'm gonna follow you. I'm gonna follow you and I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna be so annoying that you'll wish you'd stayed. Selina smiled, and it was a real smile, tired and bruised but real. I believe you. Ivy appeared in the doorway, her face carefully neutral, but Naruto saw her hands shake when she saw Selina. You're hurt, she said. Just bruises. Let me see. Selina started to protest, but Harley was already moving, pulling her up, steering her toward the bathroom where Ivy kept her supplies. Naruto watched them go, the three of them moving together like they'd done this before, like they'd always done this. He was about to sit back down when Selina turned, catching his eye. You too, she said. What? You're part of this now. That means you get patched up too. She looked at his hands, and Naruto realized he'd been clenching them so hard his nails had left marks. Even if you don't think you're hurt. He followed them into the bathroom, and stood in the doorway while Ivy worked, cleaning cuts and checking for breaks, her hands sure and gentle. Harley sat on the edge of the tub, her legs swinging, and Naruto watched the three of them, these women who had taken him in when they didn't have to, who had protected him when they should have protected themselves. And he understood something, standing there in the doorway of a cramped bathroom in an apartment that shouldn't exist in a city that didn't care. He wasn't alone anymore. Not because they needed him. Not because he was useful. Not because he could fight or protect or provide. But because they wanted him here. Because he was part of something. Because in a city that took everything, he'd found something worth holding onto. Hey, Selina said, catching his eye. You okay? Naruto looked at her. At Harley, who was watching him with something that might have been hope. At Ivy, whose hands had stilled on Selina's arm, waiting. Yeah, he said, and for the first time, he meant it. I think I am. The call came on a Tuesday. Naruto was in the greenhouse with Ivy, working on a control exercise that had become routine. Hold the thread, let it expand, let it contract, Don't let it break. He was getting better. The thread was thicker now, steadier, and the emptiness inside him had shrunk to something manageable. Not gone. Never gone. But smaller. He was so focused on the thread that he almost didn't notice when Ivy went still. The plants, she said quietly. Something's wrong. Naruto opened his eyes. The greenhouse looked the same, green, alive, humming with the quiet energy that Ivy had taught him to recognize. But there was something else now. Something that felt like pressure. Like the air before a storm. What is it? Ivy was already moving, her hands touching leaves, stems, petals. The plants responded to her, leaning into her touch, and Naruto watched her face shift from concern to something sharper. Someone's coming, she said. Someone who doesn't belong here. The door to the greenhouse burst open before she could say anything else. Selena stood in the doorway, her face pale, her chest heaving like she'd been running. We have a problem, she said. A big one. The problem had a name. Oswald Cobblepot. The Penguin. Naruto had heard the name before, in the whispered warnings that passed through Gotham's streets like smoke. A crime lord. A killer. Someone who had survived in this city for decades by being smarter and crueler than everyone else. He knows about you, Selena said, pacing the apartment, while Harley sat on the couch, unusually quiet, and Ivy stood by the window, watching the street. He's been asking questions for weeks. About the kid who showed up out of nowhere. About the people protecting him. How does he know? Naruto asked. Someone talked. One of Falcone's men, probably. Or someone who saw you with us. Selena stopped pacing, running her hands through her hair. It doesn't matter how. What matters is that Cobblepot thinks you're valuable. And when he thinks something's valuable, he doesn't stop until he has it. Harley's voice was small. What does he want with him? Power. Control. The same thing they all want. Ivy's voice was flat. He's heard about what Naruto can do. About the energy he carries. And in a city where everyone's looking for an edge, that makes him a target. Naruto looked at his hands. The thread of chakra pulsed beneath his skin, stronger than it had been a week ago, weaker than it should be. I can fight, he said. If he comes. He won't come himself. Selena cut in. He'll send people. And then more people. And then he'll make sure the people we care about are the ones who get hurt. She looked at Ivy, at Harley, and Naruto saw something in her face that he'd never seen before. Fear. He's done it before. The room was quiet. Naruto could feel the weight of their fear, the years of survival that had taught them exactly what someone like Cobblepot could do. What do we do? He asked. Selena and Ivy exchanged a look. The kind of look that carried conversations either of them wanted to have out loud. We run, Selena said finally. We disappear. There are places in this city that not even Cobblepot can find. We lay low until he gets bored and moves on to something else. That could take months, Ivy said. Years. Cobblepot doesn't get bored. He gets patient. Then we wait him out. We've done it before. This is different. Ivy turned from the window, and her face was hard. The last time we ran from someone, we lost 2 years of our lives. We lost. She stopped, her jaw tightening. We lost pieces of ourselves that we never got back. Harley made a sound that might have been agreement. Or protest. Naruto couldn't tell. He's not going to stop, Harley said, and her voice was strange, flat, distant, like she was talking about something that had already happened. He's never going to stop. That's not how it works. People like him, they don't stop until you're dead. Or they are. Naruto looked at her. At the way she was holding herself, the way her hands were wrapped around her knees like she was holding herself together. He'd seen her like this before, after Selena disappeared, after she told him about the person she'd been with, the one who'd hurt her. Harley, he said quietly. What happened? She looked at him, and for a moment he saw something behind her eyes that he hadn't seen before. Something old. Something that had been buried for a very long time. He was like Cobblepot, she said. The one I was with. He wanted things. Power. Control. And he didn't care who he hurt to get them. Her voice cracked. He hurt me. A lot. And I let him, because I didn't know, I didn't think. She stopped. Her hands were shaking. Naruto moved without thinking. He crossed the room and sat beside her, close enough to touch, not touching. You didn't let him do anything, he said. He did it. He chose to hurt you. That's not your fault. Harley stared at him. Her eyes were wet, but she wasn't crying. She hadn't cried since Selena came back. Naruto wasn't sure she knew how anymore. You don't know that, she whispered. You don't know what I was like. What I let him. I know that someone who hurts people doesn't get to blame the people they hurt. His voice was steady. Firm. I know that surviving someone like that doesn't make you weak. It makes you strong. And I know that whoever he was, whatever he did, you're still here. You're still fighting. And that's what matters.